Discover the mystery behind these two great American Indian masterpieces when Latin Eyes visits the Palace of the Governors in Santa Fe, New Mexico. In the mid-1700s, American Pueblo Indians created a masterpiece painted on buffalo hides depicting a Spanish and Indian battle. We traveled to Santa Fe, New Mexico and the Palace of the Governors to find out more. We now bring you the first in a two-part series on the Palace of the Governors in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where we take a look at the early relations between the Spanish conquerors and the Pueblo tribes. One chilly winter's day, Latin Eyes made kind of a pilgrimage to Santa Fe, New Mexico. We met with historian Garcia, who helped us try to comprehend the unique relationship between the Spanish and the people of the Pueblo tribes during a specific period, a specific place.
Probably one of the most interesting things and complicated, difficult things in my life was realizing that my father wasn't allowed to speak Spanish as a child, and he worked very hard to keep his children from learning Spanish. He didn't want us to grow up with an accent. He didn't want us to have problems trying to find a job or making it in the United States. He wanted the best for his children, so his intentions were good intentions. I had to work really hard to get that part of my culture, part of my identity back. And for me, coming to work at the Palace of the Governors made sense, because then I could try and assure that those children that come through this building get a sense of themselves with a sense of pride and a deep sense of integrity.
Within the palace, you can find these two American Indian masterpieces. How did they come into being? Who painted them? We needed some background information. Here was a mystery just waiting to be uncovered.
The building is located in Santa Fe, New Mexico. It's one of the oldest capitals in the United States. This particular building is the oldest government-used building in the United States. The construction started in 1609, and it was finished in 1610. 400 years ago, we're the northernmost outpost of the Spanish Empire, right when Jamestown is being founded. The Spanish pretty much were occupying 3/4 of the Western Hemisphere at one point.
It was here at the Governor's Palace in Santa Fe, nearly 100 years before the American Revolution, where another revolution took place. It was the first American Revolution.
Probably one of the most significant points in the history for the Palace of the Governors, for the Pueblos and for the Spanish, is the 1680 revolt, the revolt of 1680. This is the only time that the Pueblos were able to unite and work together to push out the Europeans.
The Pueblo Revolt of 1680 succeeded in removing all vestiges of Spanish military and religious rule in New Mexico. The palace was the setting of its final conflict.
They pushed the Spanish all the way from Taos down into Santa Fe, which is where we are now, down to this very building that you're standing in. And they were able to keep the Spanish here pretty much hostage for about 5 days. Were brilliant in their tactics of cutting off the water. So it didn't take long for the Spanish and Governor to surrender and say, we'll leave. We're going to leave and we're going to never come back. And so the Pueblos did let the survivors go back down to El Paso, which then became the farthest northern outpost for the Spanish for about 13 years.
The tyrants were gone. The Spanish barbarism, the torture, mutilations, forced labor, murder, and rape were now distant trappings of the past. And yet, a new tyranny arose. This time, it was from one of their own, a Pueblo Tewa Indian named Poti, who had organized a revolt, now had become nearly as despotic as had been the Spanish before him. There was an attempt to return to the traditional Pueblo ways, but the damage had already been done, and recapturing the past became a failed experiment. A bell had been rung. and it could not be unwrung. So, after a 13-year absence, the Spanish once more took control of the region. The days of Spanish brutality towards the Pueblo peoples were now mostly remnants of a former nightmare. And yet, all was not well between the Spanish and the American Pueblos.